Hello, everyone. I'm Nolan Myers, CEO of Double GDP, where we're building an end-to-end platform for cities to connect with residents, accelerate growth, and deliver responsive public services. I'm here today to give the sprint update for April 29th. And before I jump in, I just want to say I hope that those of you who are working from home are sheltering in there and doing okay. And those of you who are not so fortunate to be working from home, I hope you're doing even better and that you're weathering a storm okay. Thank you for watching. As always, I'll go through the goals that we had for last sprint, progress we made against those goals, some learnings, especially relevant this week, and what we hope to accomplish in the next sprint. Um, Goals for last sprint at a top level, we measure our goals against weekly active users, and our last 2 weeks, we wanted to hit 134 and 148 weekly active users, respectively. Then we had a few product initiatives that we wanted to work on as well. We were looking at analytics, design updates, time shift management, batch messages, and explorations around a few other sort of functional areas that we might do in a future release. So let me talk about goals. I'm happy to say at a top line, in terms of our top line number, we continue to do well against that, where our weekly active users grew to 150 and 172 weekly active users over the last 2 weeks. And I really want to say thank you to our customer success managers, Penny and Mutali, on that. It's a lot of perseverance and a lot of, at this point, really calling and coaching and making sure clients are aware of what we're doing, and the work is really paying off, and it's very much appreciated. So just going in reverse order of the other things that we wanted to do, we did explore payments, and I think we found a good place to start there, and we'll be trying to turn that into a story in the next sprint. And on events, we learned a lot about that and ultimately decided that it's not so urgent that we want to invest in it right away, but we'll come back to that in a few weeks when it becomes more pressing. We did learn a lot about some ideas around income sharing agreements, and decided also to let that one sit for a little while and not invest in it at the moment. But did have some interesting ideas around an artist in residence program as a potential way to accelerate growth of a new city. And the idea here is, what if we recruit 15 artists from around the world to live at the city and create a cultural base that would excite other people to want to live there as well. So that's something that we will continue to flesh out a little bit more and see if the idea has legs. On the other things that we aim to do, batch updates, we did get that out, and we started to think about segmentation of our users. On that, the main thing that we're doing here is we're thinking about a news post and update strategy as being the anchor to a content update strategy, where hopefully every week we will launch a short news story, as you see here, just a few bullets that goes out to the existing client base at Nkwashi, and share some of the thing and sort of encapsulate some of the things that are going on that may be related to policies or new features in the application, various kinds of things, and then we can send those batch messages there. That's something that this week we learned a lot about how to segment clients and how to make the messaging interface that we're working on a lot more responsive and better for administrators. On time shift management, our third goal for the sprint, we did not launch that. Definitely some lessons learned in our development process there, which I'll talk about a little bit more later. And then we decided not to pursue design updates in this sprint. There are definitely ways that we want to improve the design of the application, but felt like those are not as urgent as some of the customer-facing things that we were dealing with. And then on analytics, we did make some good progress where we've overhauled Google Analytics, and Yoram can take us through that. So if you want to see his video, that'd be great. And then the other thing that we learned there was the big open question from our last sprint was thinking about new versus recurring users. And so we did a little bit of analysis where we learned about that, and found that in fact it was a pleasant surprise to realize that we have quite a good number of repeat users, and that's where we're seeing the biggest growth. That our new users, first-time users, are staying relatively. We're adding to that, but we're not losing them quite as fast as we had been afraid. I still think we have a lot to learn here, and I don't feel very confident in these numbers yet, because I think we need to have a better understanding of the attribution of what's driving them to the application. So we'll learn more about that as we see the data come in from the Google Analytics work that we did. There were a few other things that we had that we accomplished that we had not even planned on at the beginning of the sprint. We rolled out a temperature recording feature where the guards, as people are checking into the gate, can record the temperature of the person who's checking in, and that is really geared around public health and safety, trying to make sure that we're aware of people entering with a fever, or people showing up at the gate that have a fever. Then in the next sprint or two, we will be adding ways to alert around that and provide some more actionable information with it. But for the first release, we just want to be able to capture that. And then at the company side, not on the product side, I think there were a few other things that we experienced in this last sprint that I want to share. One, we had our first major production incident where we actually had a regression where we destroyed an existing workflow or messed up an existing workflow. Let me just say a little bit more about that. We had we conducted a post-mortem on this. Really proud of the way that the team handled this. It was a very fast turnaround from initial discovery to closing out, and that was based on an escalation from the guards telling us what happened, our customer success managers very quickly relaying that to engineering, and engineering jumping in and fixing that very quickly. But then after the fact, we also started a post-mortem process where we talked through what happened, what went wrong, what we fixed immediately, and then what we want to put in our process to try to prevent it from happening. In this case, we took a very simple approach. We had messed up the scanning flow for guards. And so we decided just to add a manual checklist that engineering should go through every time they push to production. So simple fix. We thought about some more sophisticated automated testing as well, but decided that the simplest thing to do right now is to add it as a checklist. And so we got that in place, and we'll look for more automated ways of testing that flow in the future. And then also on a company side, I want to say we really, for the first sprint, had a product manager on board, and just helping bring a product management function into the organization has just been wonderful. And it's redefining a lot of the communications that we have with our customers, between engineering and myself, between customer success and product. So just learning how to work with such a core role in the organization has been a very gratifying experience of this last sprint. And then we've also onboarded one new engineer, Yoram, who you see for the first time in a sprint update this week. Couple learnings. So I think the highest level learning is what I would say is about iteration. We definitely did not accomplish what we wanted to accomplish in this sprint. And what happened is, as we were getting ready to push, we had one merge request that at the end of the sprint had several stories piled into it. We found a bug in one story, and that prevented us from pushing out all of those stories. This is a great thing that we will dive into more in our sprint retrospective tomorrow, and we'll have a chance to talk about as a team. From my perspective, it's we talk about iteration as a value, but we haven't really fleshed out what that means to us and what that means as a concept in practice, as opposed to a value that we aspire to. So I'm actually very much looking forward to having this conversation with the team and being able to talk about what that means and get a few sort of practices in place that will help us cement this idea into the organization. And then just a couple of other learnings from, we got a healthcare plan in place for our US employees that took a lot of sort of administrative wrangling. And I've definitely learned some on the legal side. We have an offer that we would like to make to an engineer that's based in Pakistan. But this has just meant quite a lot of back and forth trying to figure out how do we structure a good relationship with an engineer in Pakistan, especially around intellectual property and making sure that we have that. So we've sort of had to go through a variety of different administrative loops and dealing with lawyers to try to sort all of that out. The process has definitely taken longer than I think it should, but I think also learning in the process there. So that's it in terms of last sprint. What we're aiming to do for the next sprint, we want to get our iteration more in practice and really sort of talk about as a team, what that means, and try to get those that value more fleshed out. We have a few product things that we want to accomplish, including auto enrollment of users at the gate, adding email to our messaging capability so that we can be more comfortable sending blasts more frequently without it being as much of an interruption on clients. Making the app a one-stop shop for any links that the customers need to go to. So that should just be pretty quick and easy, but I think adds a lot of power as a place that we can refer people. And then some of the learnings that we got in terms of client work requests. And this reminded me actually of one other thing. One of the things that we learned about that I wanted to talk about was actually the staff augmentation that we've been doing with our customer in Kwashi. And we've actually had customer success managers operate as part of their team in this sprint. And that has been just so many learnings from that in terms of the communications that we have with in Kwashi, the number of feature requests that we're getting, the depth of the features that we are learning about. It's been a really wonderful process to see that and see that bring more customer demand into our organization. We've taken that same practice now and started applying that to partnerships, where Jay, you'll see Jay in Jay's video talking a little bit about almost being a helping hand to one of our core partners and being on that city's staff to help them figure out some of the things that they're working on in terms of financing in the next round or in the next few weeks, excuse me. And I think that I'm excited to see what that same strategy that has been so successful with our customer can actually bring to our partnership side. So a little bit more on that on the next sprint. I think that's going to be probably 2 sprints out now that we'll be able to share some of the learnings from that just based on that client's timeline or that potential partner's timeline. And then also in this sprint, we want to close the contract on that front-end engineer and recharter our hiring plan. And what this means is just we've done a lot of hiring in the last few months, and this was based on the initial hypothesis of where we were in the business. Obviously, we've learned a lot in that time, and we have a much more robust team than when that hiring plan was initially created. So I think it's a great opportunity for us to check in as a team, figure out what are the skills that we need, and make sure that we have clarity on the roles that we want to recruit in the next few months. So that's it. Looking forward to getting back in touch in a couple of weeks, and we'll have more to share then. Thank you everyone for watching, and stay safe.